Guys, I think we're lost. What do you mean lost? I thought Brad was mapping. No, I was eating Cheetos. We told you to stop eating Cheetos. It gets all over the player's handbook. I swear to God, Brad, if you put Cheeto dust on my player's handbook, Wait, did we come from down this way? Or did we come from the other way? That's what we're trying to figure out. Where did we come from? Know where we came from. Guys, you gotta be quiet. The show's starting. The show? What show?
With a show of the vile necromancer.
Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of The Vile Necromancers, creating a character old school style. And by old school, we obviously mean AD&D. So, what are we talking about today? Well, I believe we're on part 4, and I was going to originally do these as 2 separate parts, but instead we're going to talk about them as the same part. We're going to do both spells and equipment, as they are both acquisitions of extra items for your character. So I think we'll talk about them both in the same episode. Beginning with equipment. Now, each character class has a different way of determining your gold, your starting gold. So you're going to turn to page 35 of your player's handbook, and you're going to look at the top underneath money, and you'll see a category called starting money. This is what Gary has to say. Your character is unusual, exceptional as compared to the norm. This applies to abilities and funds as well. Thus, he or she will have a large supply of coins with to purchase and equipment and supplies to begin adventuring. The possible number of gold pieces with which a character begins depends on the character class. For clerics, it's 3d6 times 10. For fighters, it's 5d4 times 10. For magic users, it's 2d4 times 10. For thieves, it is 2d6 times 10. And for monks, it is 5d4, not times 10. It's just 5d4. To determine the number of gold pieces your character has at the start, simply roll the appropriate dice and total the sum, adding a decimal if necessary. Most of these funds will quickly be spent on the cost of staying in the adventuring area and acquiring the equipment which will be used for adventuring. See basic equipment and supplies cost table hereafter. Now they give you a monetary system. This is how I always tell my players. So, 200 copper equals 20 silver. 20 silver equals 2 electrum. 2 electrum equals 1 gold piece, and 1 gold piece equals 1/5 platinum. If you're putting that into a calculator, you take however many electrum you spend, times that by 0.5, and you write that number down. If you're doing it for silver, it is 0.05. If you're doing it for copper, it is 0.005, or easier to read as 5 100ths or 5 1,000ths. For gold, it's just obviously 1 to 1, and for platinum, it's a 5 to 1. Take that number and times it by 5. When buying equipment, you should always have the following. This is my personal gear. So you're going to see sections called arms and armor. Arms and armor. You're going to need, from that arms table, a weapon of some form. And you have to make sure that it is a weapon proficiency. We'll get into weapon proficiencies in the combat video, but you need a weapon. Make sure you're proficient with it. Actually, if you want to read up on proficiencies before we cover them, they're on page 36 underneath weapons. Now, if I was a magic user, let's say I'm proficient with a dagger, I would buy a dagger, or I'd buy darts or something. You will need a week's worth of rations, which can be found on page 36 under provisions. I would recommend getting iron rations. They do cost a little more, but I consider them to be actual adventuring food. It's not just your standard trail mix that merchants are eating. You will need a full water or wine skin, which can be found under the water skin can be found under miscellaneous equipment and items, whereas wine, if you're buying wine, you actually do have to purchase it. It is under provisions. You will need a bedroll, which can be found. Can it be found here? I don't think bedrolls are on here. Bedrolls might be one of my own homebrew items, but you'll need. Actually, you can replace a bedroll with a backpack. Actually, yes, a backpack. If you're in my game, you will need a bedroll. But otherwise, you could also just say, hey, DM, how much does a bedroll cost? As I think you would need a bedroll. You will need a storage container that is not your backpack. It could be a second backpack. It could be a large sack, something to carry out gold mostly in. You will also need a belt and a good set of boots. These can be found on page 35 underneath clothing. The backpack can be found under miscellaneous equipment and items. And that storage container, it's important for it to not be a chest. Not be a chest or an iron box. Something that you can carry. For fighters, you should purchase a set of good, cheap armor. No more than 30 gold per piece. So you'll want ring mail. So like you get ring mail, a helmet, and a shield. That in total would be 60, but each of those pieces is less than 30. That's if you're getting a great helmet and a large shield. You will need, and I also do say a helmet and a shield. You'll need that. You'll need, if you're a druid, cleric, or paladin, you should purchase a holy symbol, which can be found under religious items, and you will need those warding herbs, which can be found underneath herbs. So that's the belladonna spring, the garlic bud, and the wolfsbane sprig. If you're a thief, you'll need a rope, at least 50 feet of it, and you'll need thieves' tools, and you'll need a 10-foot pole. All of that can be found underneath miscellaneous equipment and items. If you're a magic user, you'll need a scroll case, at least one, a set of robes, and 2 small belt pouches for material components. Clerics should also get probably a set of robes for their finery, and should get 2 small belt pouches for material components. It is also important that the party has the following divided amongst themselves: 150 feet of rope, 2 lanterns with 2 or more oil flasks, 4 torches or more per expedition, as well as a tinderbox and flint and steel, and 4 large sacks. That is just equipment that I feel is necessary when you're adventuring. So, now that we have done that, let's talk a little bit about character spells. The other item that you acquire is spells. As a magic user, you acquire these through a random table in the Dungeon Master's Guide, called under the section Acquisition of Magic User Spells. You can also do the same thing of acquisition of illusionist spells. You roll on a table. Roll on it 3 times for defensive, offensive, and miscellaneous. Those will be your 4 spells, or if you're an illusionist, 3 spells. As a magic user, you also will get read magic. As a cleric, you will get a bonus to your first spell of spells for high wisdom. So starting at... went too far. Starting at a wisdom of 13, you will get +1 first level. So if you had a wisdom of 14, you would technically get 3 first level spells. If you do not have a wisdom bonus, you get 1 first level spell. And these spells can be found for clerics. They can be found on in the spell section, obviously. Let me just get to it. My apologies. Can be found here. Same thing with druids. So this is what it says about clerical spells. Clerical spells, including the druidic, are bestowed by God, so that the cleric need but pray for a few hours, and the desired verbal and somatic spell components will be placed properly in his or her mind. First, second, third, and even 4th level spells are granted to the cleric through meditation and devout prayer. This spell giving is accomplished by the lesser servants of the cleric's deity. 5th, 6th, and 7th levels can be given only to the cleric. Can be given to the cleric only by the cleric's deity directly, not through some intermediary source. Note the cleric might well be judged by his or her deity at such time, as the cleric must supplicate the deity for the granting of these spells. While a deity may grant such spells full willingly, a deed or sacrifice, atonement, or abashment may be required. The deity might also ignore a specific spell request and give the cleric some other spell, or none at all. Your dungeon master will handle this considering a cleric's alignment and faithfulness to it and his or her deity. Note that some cleric spells and all druid spells also require material ingredients in order for the desired effects to take place. Such components must be supplied by the cleric or druid, as material is not bestowed. So, if you're looking for cleric spells or druid spells, go to page 40 or page 41. You're going to go to the first level spells, and you're going to say, okay, these are the spells I would like to have. As a DM, I would roll a % chance. If you do not get that exact spell, I have you roll a d12, and that is instead the spell you get. If it's a duplicate, you roll again until you don't get a duplicate. That's how I handle that. So spell acquisition is fairly simple. When you are looking at spells and casting spells, there are three types of ingredients you may need: verbal, somatic, and material. Verbal is obviously the magic words. The somatic is the magic hand motions, and the material is like a crystal or a pearl worth 100 gold pieces for identify. You may need specific items for specific spells, and these will be listed underneath the spell description. So I will also teach you now how to read a spell description. So the spell will note, I'm going to go to magic user because I know how to read this. The spell will note what level it is, the type of school it is. So it'll say the title, this is how I will go from top to bottom. It'll say the name of the spell, and then in parentheses, the school. So message is an alteration. Then you'll see level. It'll note the level of the spell, in this case 1. It'll note the components. If you get a V, S, and M, V stands for verbal, S stands for somatic, M stands for material. The duration, or then it'll go range. It'll say 6 inches. 6 inches. So you go 6 inches, and then it might say +1 a level. For message it does. So you add 6 + 1 for every level above 1 you are. Casting time is 1 segment, so that's how many rounds of combat it will take, or how many turns outside of combat it will take. It will say the duration. This one says 5 segments + 1 segment per level. It'll say the saving throw required, if there is any. Some creatures get saving throws. And it'll say the area of effect. So however much. It is 1/4 inch path. And then it will give you the explanation or the description. It is important to know these descriptions. As a dungeon master, I ask my players to have each of their, send me a Google Doc with all their things so I can print out their spells before the game begins. But yes, that is the basics of spell casting. It is important that you know what your spell does, and it is important that you're not relying on the DM to know what the spell does. DMs have a lot to be concerned about. The last thing we need is to know exactly what your spell does, though a lot of us do know what the spells do and what saving throws are required. Though we may ask, what saving throw is required? Well, go to the saving throw section. It might say special. Go down below, and you'll see. So, that is kind of all we have to talk about today. Very short episode. Again, hope you enjoyed that new title card. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the Patreon if you feel so indulged to. And tomorrow we talk about... what do we talk about tomorrow? Leveling, and I believe... leveling, saving throws, and something else. Leveling, saving throws, and then we'll talk about something. I don't know. When tomorrow's video comes out, you'll see what we're talking about. I need a third thing for that video, which I have not yet decided, but it will be decided by tomorrow, and I say that thusly. So, thank you all for watching. Please stay tuned. Please join us for tomorrow's live stream at 9:05, and please join us not this Saturday, but next Saturday for the premiere episode of Morons and Magic Users in the quest for the good stuff of the Drunken Pits. Thank you, folks. That's all for me. Peace out, and may your dice roll ever natural.